Speed legends come and go, but some truly insane machines have slipped through the cracks of history. These 12 forgotten rockets once ruled the roads and tracks, packing mind-blowing horsepower and record-breaking speed. Yet, for some reason, they never became household names. Get ready to rediscover the lost kings of speed. The 1992 Vector W8 twin-turbo is one of the most extreme and mysterious supercars ever built, an American attempt to outgun Ferrari, Lamborghini, and even McLaren at their own game. It was a car that looked like it belonged in a cyberpunk future, with a design seemingly pulled straight from a fighter jet hangar rather than an automotive factory. With its sharp, angular bodywork, aviation-inspired cockpit, and twin-turbocharged power plant, the W8 was meant to be the ultimate expression of speed, technology, and excess. On paper, it was nothing short of a revolution, a supercar capable of speeds beyond 240 mph, hand-built using aerospace materials, and powered by an earth-shattering twin-turbo V8 that, in later tests, allegedly produced up to 1,100 horsepower. Yet, despite all its promise, the Vector W8 never reached the level of success its creator, Gerald Wiegert, had envisioned. Instead, it became a symbol of unfulfilled ambition, a cautionary tale of what happens when engineering genius collides with financial and legal turmoil. To understand the W8, you have to understand Wiegert. He wasn't just trying to build a supercar, he was trying to redefine the concept of an American high-performance machine. Founded in the 1970s, Vector Aeromotive Corporation set out to create a supercar that would rival the European elite while incorporating the most advanced materials and design principles from the aerospace industry. The W8 was the culmination of years of development and refinement, a car that took inspiration from fighter jets in both its construction and philosophy. Unlike Ferrari or Lamborghini, which built their supercars with a mix of tradition and modern engineering, Vector was looking toward the future. The W8 was constructed using lightweight carbon fiber, Kevlar, and aerospace-grade aluminum, making it one of the most advanced road cars of its time. The real star of the show, however, was the powertrain. Underneath the W8's sleek, wedge-shaped body sat a twin-turbocharged 6.0-liter aluminum block V8, based on a heavily modified version of the small-block Chevrolet engine. In stock form, it produced an advertised 625 horsepower and 649 lb-ft of torque, but Wiegert always hinted that the car was capable of much more. In later tests and development stages, the engine was reportedly tuned to exceed 1,000 horsepower, with some claiming it even reached as high as 200. Power was sent to the rear wheels through a 3-speed automatic transmission, a choice that baffled some enthusiasts, but was necessary to handle the sheer torque output of the monstrous V8. The performance numbers were staggering, even by today's standards. The W8 could sprint from 0 to 60 mph in just over 3 seconds, with quarter-mile times dipping into the low 11-second range. Its top speed was a source of much debate, but real-world tests confirmed that it was capable of exceeding 240 mph, making it one of the fastest cars on the planet at the time, outpacing legends like the Ferrari F40, Porsche 959, and Lamborghini Diablo. The only real competition came from the McLaren F1, a car that would arrive a year later and take the title of the fastest production car in the world. Inside the cockpit, the W8 was just as extreme as its exterior suggested. The interior was designed like a fighter jet, featuring digital displays, aircraft-style switchgear, and a unique wraparound dashboard that made the driver feel as though they were piloting a spacecraft rather than a car. The center console was filled with buttons, dials, and readouts, including a built-in diagnostic system and a digital gauge cluster that was groundbreaking for its time. The seating position was low and aggressive, reinforcing the idea that the W8 was not just a car, but an experience, one that required full concentration and a fearless attitude to truly exploit its potential. However, the W8 wasn't without its flaws. While the car was undeniably fast, it was also notoriously difficult to handle at high speeds. The aerodynamics, though futuristic in appearance, created stability issues, and the car was known for feeling unpredictable under hard acceleration. Reliability was another concern. The twin-turbo V8, while immensely powerful, was prone to overheating, and the advanced electronics, though groundbreaking, were temperamental and prone to failure. Combine this with an eye-watering price tag of over $450,000 in early 1990s money, and the W8 became a tough sell for potential buyers. Vector's problems didn't end there. Weigert's ambitious vision ran into financial trouble, and the company faced a series of legal battles that ultimately led to its downfall. After producing just 17 customer cars plus 2 prototypes, Vector Aeromotive was taken over by a group of Indonesian investors, effectively ending Weigert's control over the company. He attempted to regain ownership and launch a new version of the W8, but by then the damage was done. The 1995 Lotec C1000 is one of the most extreme, mysterious, and downright terrifying hypercars ever built, yet almost no one has heard of it. Unlike the McLaren F1 or the Bugatti EB110, which were developed by major manufacturers with worldwide acclaim, the Lotec C1000 was a one-off machine, custom-built for a billionaire who wanted the fastest car on the planet. It was the kind of project that sounded more like a fantasy than reality. A fully carbon fiber-bodied, twin-turbo V8-powered monster with a reported top speed of 268 mph, numbers that would have made it the fastest car in the world at the time. But despite its mind-boggling specs, the C1000 remained in the shadows, a ghost of a hypercar that never got the recognition it deserved. The story of the Lotec C1000 begins in the late 1980s, when a wealthy oil magnate from the United Arab Emirates approached Lotec, a small but highly respected German engineering firm, with a simple request: build the fastest car in the world, regardless of cost. At the time, Lotec was known for constructing high-performance race cars and tuning kits for Mercedes-Benz. But this project was unlike anything they had attempted before. The goal was clear: create a road-legal machine that could surpass every known speed record while maintaining an absurd level of exclusivity. It took several years of development, but in 1995, the Lotec C1000 was finally completed, a machine that looked like it had been pulled straight out of a sci-fi film. At the heart of the C1000 was a beastly 5.6-liter Mercedes-Benz twin-turbocharged V8, an engine that was extensively modified to produce a staggering 1,000 horsepower and over 740 lb-ft of torque. The car's name, C1000, was a reference to its carbon fiber construction and its 4-digit power output. To put this in perspective, in 1995, the reigning king of speed, the McLaren F1, made only 627 horsepower from its naturally aspirated BMW V12. The Bugatti EB110 SS, another powerhouse of the era, managed 603 horsepower. The Lotec C1000 was operating on an entirely different level, a full 400 horsepower beyond anything else on the road. With such an absurd amount of power, the C1000's performance was simply mind-blowing. It could rocket from 0 to 60 mph in just 3.2 seconds, unbelievably fast for the time, and allegedly had a theoretical top speed of 268 mph, which would have shattered every speed record in existence. The problem was that nobody ever got the chance to verify this claim under controlled conditions. The car was built for a single customer, and official testing never took place. However, given its aerodynamics, weight, and power output, many believe the C1000 could have come close to its claimed maximum velocity, if not exceeded it. The car itself was a technological marvel. The entire body and chassis were made from lightweight carbon fiber and Kevlar, making it incredibly light for a vehicle of its size, just 2,381 pounds, or about the same weight as a Lotus Elise. To keep the car from turning into an uncontrollable missile, Lotec equipped it with a massive rear wing, aggressive ground effects, and an advanced aerodynamic package designed to provide stability at ultra-high speeds. Power was sent to the rear wheels through a 5-speed manual gearbox, meaning the driver had to wrestle with all 1,000 horsepower without the aid of modern electronic assists. Inside, the cockpit was Spartan but functional, designed more like a fighter jet than a luxury car. Red leather seats, aircraft-style toggle switches, and a dashboard filled with gauges gave the C1000 a no-nonsense race car feel. Unlike many high-speed hypercars that strive for at least some level of comfort, the C1000 was built with one purpose in mind: speed. Air conditioning was included, but beyond that, creature comforts were minimal. This was a machine designed to intimidate its driver, not coddle them. Despite its jaw-dropping capabilities, the Lotec C1000 remained almost completely unknown. Only one was ever built, and once it was delivered to its owner, it essentially vanished from the public eye. Unlike the McLaren F1 or the Ferrari F50, which became icons of 1990s performance, the C1000 never had a chance to shine in the spotlight. It wasn't tested by major automotive journalists, it never set official speed records, and it wasn't featured in high-profile races. Instead, it became a footnote in hypercar history, known only to the most hardcore enthusiasts. Part of the reason for its obscurity was the fact that it was a private commission rather than a production model. Unlike major manufacturers who build cars to showcase their engineering prowess, Lotec built the C1000 for a single customer who, after taking delivery, seemingly had little interest in promoting its existence. There were no grand unveilings, no speed runs at Volkswagen's Aerovette test track, and no multi-million-dollar marketing campaigns. The 1988 Callaway Sledgehammer Corvette is one of the most mind-blowing and underappreciated feats of American engineering. A car so ahead of its time that it could outrun some of the fastest hypercars built decades later. At a time when most production sports cars were struggling to break 180 mph, Callaway's heavily modified C4 Corvette not only shattered expectations, but it also rewrote the record books, reaching a verified 254.76 mph on a test track. What makes this achievement even more astonishing is that the Sledgehammer was not a stripped-down, one-off race car built purely for speed runs. It was a fully street-legal machine, complete with air conditioning, a stereo, and comfortable leather seats. This was a Corvette that could be driven to the track, annihilate anything in its path, and then be casually driven home as if nothing had happened. The story of the Sledgehammer starts with Reeves Callaway, a man whose name became synonymous with extreme performance. Callaway Cars, based in Connecticut, had built a reputation for engineering high-performance, turbocharged and supercharged variants of factory sports cars. In the 1980s, Callaway became known for producing the Callaway twin-turbo Corvette, an officially sanctioned RPO option, B2K, sold through Chevrolet dealerships. These Callaway Corvettes were already pushing the limits of street performance. But Reeves Callaway wanted to take things even further. He wanted to build the fastest road-legal car in the world. The result was the Sledgehammer, a no-compromise engineering exercise that remains one of the greatest speed machines ever created. At its core, the Sledgehammer started life as a standard 1988 Corvette, but almost nothing about it remained stock. The heart of the beast was a heavily modified 5.7-liter Chevrolet small block V8, built with the strongest internal components available at the time. Callaway equipped the engine with a pair of massive turbochargers, custom intercoolers, and a sophisticated fuel injection system, allowing it to produce an astonishing 898 horsepower and 7.2 Nm of torque. These numbers were almost unheard of in the late 1980s. Most supercars of the era, including the Ferrari F40 and Porsche 959, were making less than half that. To handle the absurd power output, Callaway completely reworked the car's drivetrain, installing a reinforced 6-speed manual transmission and an upgraded suspension system designed to keep the Corvette stable at extreme speeds. The aerodynamics were also fine-tuned, with a custom Callaway body kit that included an elongated nose, a deeper front air dam, and a massive rear wing to improve high-speed stability. Unlike many top-speed machines which rely on excessive power to muscle through the air, the Sledgehammer was designed with real-world aerodynamics in mind, allowing it to slice through the atmosphere with remarkable efficiency. On October 26, 1988, at the Transportation Research Center, TRC, proving grounds in Ohio, the Callaway Sledgehammer Corvette made history. Driven by John Lingenfelter, one of the most legendary tuners and racers of the era, The car blasted down the oval test track and reached an officially recorded top speed of 254.76 km/h. To put this into perspective, that was over 30 km/h faster than the Ferrari F40, over 50 km/h faster than a Lamborghini Countach, and nearly 20 km/h faster than the McLaren F1, which wouldn't debut until 1990. Even more astonishingly, the Sledgehammer's record stood uncontested for years, remaining the fastest street legal car in the world until the Bugatti Veyron came along in the mid-2000s. But despite this incredible achievement, the Sledgehammer remained a one-of-a-kind prototype. Callaway had built the car purely as a proof of concept, an engineering demonstration to show what was possible with the right expertise and resources. There were no plans to mass produce it, and no customers ever had the chance to own a car capable of such insane speeds. As a result, while automotive enthusiasts and hardcore Corvette fans remember the Sledgehammer as one of the greatest high-speed machines ever built, it never received the mainstream recognition that cars like the McLaren F1 or Bugatti Veyron enjoyed. One of the most remarkable aspects of the Sledgehammer was how it remained a fully functional, street-drivable vehicle. Unlike many top-speed prototypes, which are essentially stripped-down race cars with no consideration for comfort or usability, the Sledgehammer retained all the amenities of a standard Corvette. It had power windows, air conditioning, a full interior, and even a premium sound system, meaning that, in theory, you could drive it to a grocery store just as easily as you could take it past 250 mph on a closed track. The 1991 Cizeta-Moroder V16T is one of the most ambitious, extravagant, and tragically misunderstood supercars ever built. A machine that had everything needed to dominate the exotic car world, but instead became a rare footnote in automotive history. At a time when Ferrari, Lamborghini, and Porsche were refining their supercars into high-performance icons, Cizeta took a completely different approach. Rather than tweaking an existing formula, they built something utterly insane. A 16-cylinder, 6.0-liter monster, mounted transversely in the middle of the car, stuffed into a body that looked like a Countach on steroids. It was an engineering marvel and a design spectacle, a car that had no equal. Yet, despite its groundbreaking approach and sheer mechanical lunacy, the V16T was simply too ambitious for its own good. The story of the Cizeta-Moroder V16T is deeply tied to Lamborghini, as its creator, Claudio Zampoli, was an ex-Lamborghini test driver and engineer who had a dream of building the ultimate Italian supercar. Zampoli believed that the supercar industry had become too conservative, with manufacturers playing it safe by sticking to traditional V8s and V12s. He envisioned something completely different, something that would shock the automotive world. His idea? A transversely mounted 16-cylinder engine, a configuration never before seen in a production car. To make the dream a reality, he teamed up with music legend and electronic music pioneer Giorgio Moroder, who agreed to fund the project in exchange for his name being attached to the car. The V16T name came from the car's defining feature, a massive 6.0-liter, transversely mounted V16 engine. Unlike most high-performance engines, which are designed as a single unit, the V16 in the Cizeta was essentially two Lamborghini Arauco V8s fused together, complete with 4-cylinder heads, 8 camshafts, and an absurd 64 valves. This mechanical masterpiece produced 540 horsepower at 8,000 RPM, an astonishing figure for the early 1990s. Power was sent to the rear wheels through a 5-speed manual transmission, and thanks to its advanced aerodynamics and sheer brute force, the V16T could blast past 200 mph, a feat that only a handful of cars could achieve at the time. But the Cizeta wasn't just about raw performance. It was designed to be a rolling work of art. The bodywork, penned by none other than Marcello Gandini, the same man responsible for the Lamborghini Miura and Countach, was a stunning evolution of his signature wedge-shaped supercar designs. If the Lamborghini Diablo was sleek and aggressive, the Cizeta was its unhinged, over-the-top cousin. It featured an ultra-low stance, wide proportions, and one of the wildest front-end designs of any supercar, complete with 4 retractable pop-up headlights, giving it an unmistakable presence on the road. The The car looked like a Lamborghini Countach had been cranked up to 11, with sharper angles, wider haunches, and an almost cartoonish level of excess. However, this excess came at a price, literally. The Cizeta-Moroder V16T was astonishingly expensive, costing over $650,000 in the early 1990s, which made it significantly pricier than the already expensive Lamborghini Diablo or Ferrari F40. The complex nature of the car also made it a nightmare to produce, and Moroder eventually pulled out of the project due to financial disagreements. Without his funding, Zampoli struggled to keep the company afloat, and only a handful of cars were ever built. Officially, production numbers vary, but most sources agree that around 12 to 13 units were completed before the company shut down. One of the biggest issues with the V16T was that it was simply too ambitious for its own good. The transversely mounted V16 was a marvel of engineering, but created packaging and weight distribution challenges that made the car difficult to develop and maintain. The price tag made it nearly impossible to compete with more established supercar brands, and without a proper dealership or service network, customers were hesitant to buy a car that was practically one of a kind. While Cizeta had aimed to create the world's greatest supercar, the reality was that they had built a highly exclusive, highly complex machine that few people could afford, and even fewer were willing to take a risk on. Despite its commercial failure, the Cizeta-Moroder V16T remains one of the most fascinating and exotic supercars of all time. It was a machine built without compromise, a car that defied conventional engineering and dared to push the boundaries of what was possible. In an era where Ferrari and Lamborghini were beginning to refine their supercar formulas, Cizeta went in the opposite direction, creating something that was more powerful, more complex, and more extreme than anything else on the road. Today, the Cizeta V16T is a collector's dream, an ultra-rare unicorn that exists in the shadows of automotive history. The 2001 Dauer 962 Le Mans is the ultimate example of a race car for the road, a machine so extreme, so unfiltered, that it makes modern hypercars look tame by comparison. Born from the legendary Porsche 962 endurance racer, the Dauer 962 was more than just a road-going replica. It was, for all intents and purposes, a Le Mans winning race car modified just enough to be legally driven on public roads. It was the kind of car that defied logic, blending raw motorsport engineering with just enough luxury to technically qualify as a production vehicle. Yet, despite its jaw-dropping performance and historic significance, it remains one of the most underappreciated hypercars ever built. To understand the Dauer 962, you first have to appreciate its origins. The Porsche 962 was one of the most dominant endurance race cars of all time, competing in the 1980s and early 1990s across the world's most grueling circuits, including the 24 Hours of Le Mans. The 962 was essentially an evolution of the already legendary Porsche 956, featuring a longer wheelbase, improved safety features, and a twin-turbocharged flat-six engine that could produce well over 700 horsepower in race trim. It was a car designed to survive 24 hours of flat-out racing at speeds exceeding 220 mph, and its success on the track cemented its place in motorsport history. But in the early 1990s, Jochen Dauer, a former racing driver and the founder of Dauer Racing, saw an opportunity to take the 962 beyond the racetrack. With the help of Porsche, he set out to modify the 962 into a road-legal supercar, an idea that sounds insane even by today's standards. The concept was simple. Take a Le Mans winning race car, add enough road-going equipment to satisfy government regulations, and unleash it onto the streets. The result was the Dauer 962 Le Mans, a car that retained the brutal performance of the original racer while offering just enough refinement to be considered street legal. Under the rear bodywork, the Dauer 962 retained the same twin-turbocharged 3.0-liter flat-six engine that powered the Porsche race cars. In its road-going configuration, it was tuned to produce around 730 horsepower, an astronomical figure for the early 2000s. This power was channeled through a 5-speed manual transmission, sending power to the rear wheels and allowing the car to rocket from 0 to 60 mph in just 2.6 seconds. With a top speed of 251 mph, the Dauer 962 was faster than the McLaren F1, the reigning speed king of the era, and came dangerously close to the speed figures that hypercars like the Bugatti Veyron would achieve years later. What made the Dauer 962 so unique was that it wasn't just a rebodied Porsche, it was, mechanically and aerodynamically, still a 962 race car. The lightweight carbon fiber and Kevlar monocoque chassis remained virtually unchanged, and the aerodynamic profile, designed for high-speed stability on circuits like Le Mans, gave it an edge over almost every other road car in existence. The only real modifications made to the chassis were the addition of a slightly raised ride height to deal with road imperfections, some minor comfort upgrades, and the inclusion of things like headlights, turn signals, and a slightly more finished interior. But make no mistake, this was still a race car at heart, and driving it on normal roads was an experience unlike anything else. The Dauer 962's claim to fame didn't just come from its outrageous performance. It also played a fascinating role in motorsport history. In the early 1990s, the ACO, the organizers of the 24 Hours of Le Mans, changed the rules to allow road-legal versions of race cars to compete in the GT1 class. Dauer, seeing an opportunity, worked with Porsche to exploit this loophole. They built a handful of road-legal Dauer 962s, which technically made them eligible for competition. In '94, a modified Dauer 962 entered Le Mans and stunned the racing world by winning outright, proving that it was still one of the most dominant endurance machines ever built, even years after its original retirement from competition. Despite its incredible pedigree, the Dauer 962 never reached mainstream supercar status. Only a handful were ever built, with estimates suggesting between 10 and 13 cars in total. The extreme cost, the absurdity of owning a literal race car for the street, and the emergence of more user-friendly hypercars meant that the Dauer 962 remained a rare, almost mythical creation. While the McLaren F1, Bugatti Veyron, and other hypercars have become household names among enthusiasts, the Dauer 962 exists in the shadows, remembered by only the most dedicated fans of motorsport history. Today, the Dauer 962 is one of the most sought-after and legendary supercars ever built, a car that represents the purest form of motorsport engineering transferred to the road. Unlike modern hypercars that rely on electronic driver aids, hybrid technology, and active aerodynamics, the 2007 SSC Ultimate Aero TT was America's ultimate underdog story, an obscure hypercar built by a small Washington-based company that took on the might of Bugatti and won. At a time when the world was in awe of the Bugatti Veyron, a car engineered with seemingly unlimited resources from Volkswagen, no one expected an independent American manufacturer to come along and steal its crown. But SSC Shelby supercars, no relation to Carroll Shelby, did exactly that, setting a verified top speed of 256.1 mph and officially becoming the world's fastest production car. For a brief moment, SSC stood on top of the automotive world, proving that innovation and raw power could beat corporate might. And yet, despite its historic achievement, the Ultimate Aero TT remains one of the most overlooked hypercars in history, a machine that few remember even though it once ruled the speed charts. SSC was founded by Jared Shelby, an engineer with no relation to the famous Shelby American founder, but with a similar obsession for performance. Unlike European manufacturers that focused on balance, aerodynamics, and luxury, SSC took a more old-school American approach. Big power, lightweight construction, and a no-nonsense, brutal driving experience. The Ultimate Aero TT was an evolution of the original Ultimate Aero, a car that already boasted serious performance, but SSC wasn't satisfied. They needed something that could not only compete with the Veyron, but beat it outright. That meant more power, more speed, and fewer compromises. At the heart of the Ultimate Aero TT was a twin-turbocharged 6.3-liter V8 engine, based on a Chevrolet small block, but heavily modified to produce an astonishing 1,183 horsepower and 194 lb of torque. Unlike the Veyron, which relied on all-wheel drive and complex electronic aids to tame its quad-turbo W16 engine, the SSC was unapologetically raw. Power was sent exclusively to the rear wheels through a 6-speed manual transmission. No dual clutch, no paddle shifters, no computer-controlled torque vectoring. It was a car that demanded complete focus from the driver, rewarding skill and punishing mistakes. The lack of electronic safety nets meant that at full throttle, the Ultimate Aero TT was a violent, unforgiving machine that required both bravery and precision to control. The car's aerodynamics were refined in wind tunnels to reduce drag while maintaining stability at high speeds. Unlike the Veyron, which relied on active aerodynamics and a massive rear wing that adjusted for downforce, the Ultimate Aero TT was more minimalist in its approach. Its fixed-wing design and slippery bodywork allowed it to cut through the air with as little resistance as possible, a crucial factor in its record-setting top-speed run. In September 2007, SSC took the Ultimate Aero TT to a closed highway in Washington state and set the world speed record for a production car, hitting an average of 256.1 km/h over 2 runs in opposite directions. This officially dethroned the Bugatti Veyron, which had held the record at 253 mph and made the Ultimate Aero TT the fastest car on the planet. It was a moment of triumph for SSC, proving that a small American company could beat the best Europe had to offer using sheer power and ingenuity. The world took notice, and for a brief time, SSC was on top of the hypercar world. However, the Ultimate Aero TT's time in the spotlight was short-lived. The record stood until 2010, when Bugatti reclaimed the title with the Veyron Supersport, which reached 267.86 mph. SSC had plans to push even further with newer versions of the Ultimate Aero, but by then the hypercar war had shifted focus toward brands like Koenigsegg and Bugatti, and SSC began to fade into the background. The company later developed the Tuatara, an even more extreme hypercar that controversially claimed a 316 mph top speed before facing scrutiny over the legitimacy of the run. Despite being a record-breaking machine, the Ultimate Aero TT never gained the same legendary status as the Bugatti Veyron or Koenigsegg Agera. Part of this was due to its limited production numbers and lack of global recognition. SSC was never a household name like Ferrari or Bugatti, and the car's no-frills hardcore nature meant it lacked the luxurious appeal of its European rivals. The Veyron was seen as an engineering masterpiece, an ultra-refined hypercar that combined comfort with speed, while the Ultimate Aero TT was a brutal, unforgiving speed machine built with one goal in mind: going faster than anything else on the road. Today, the Ultimate Aero TT is a forgotten king, a car that once held the world's most prestigious speed record but never received the recognition it truly deserved. While the Bugatti Veyron is celebrated as a technological marvel and Koenigsegg is praised for its relentless innovation, SSC remains an outsider in the hypercar world. The 1969 Dodge Charger Daytona Hemi was a machine born from necessity, an engineering marvel created with one goal in mind: to dominate NASCAR. Dodge had been frustrated by their losses on the high-speed superspeedways, where the Ford Torino Talladega and Mercury Cyclone spoiler were proving to be aerodynamically superior to the standard Charger 500. Dodge engineers realized that brute force wasn't enough. They needed something radical to push their cars to the front of the pack. The result was the Daytona, a car so extreme in its design that people mocked it, until it became the first NASCAR racer to officially break 200 mph, silencing every critic with a roar of its legendary 426 Hemi. The Charger Daytona wasn't just a mildly modified muscle car, it was an all-out assault on the laws of aerodynamics. Dodge engineers extended the nose cone by 18 inches, adding an aggressive, sharply pointed front end that reduced drag and helped the car cut through the air at high speeds. But the most famous feature of the Daytona was its towering rear wing, which rose an eye-popping 23 inches above the deck lid. While many thought it was excessive, the wing played a crucial role in keeping the car stable at high speeds. Unlike conventional spoilers, which only managed airflow over the rear of the car, the Daytona's massive wing was placed high enough to function in undisturbed air, generating serious downforce and keeping the rear tires planted even at speeds above 190 mph. Underneath the wild bodywork, Dodge offered two engine choices: the 440 Magnum V8, producing 375 horsepower, or the legendary 426 Hemi, which officially made 425 horsepower, but was widely known to be underrated. The Hemi was the holy grail of Mopar performance. With its hemispherical combustion chambers, massive valves, and high revving nature, making it one of the most dominant engines in racing history. Paired with a 4-speed manual transmission or a tough-as-nails torquey flight automatic, the Daytona was a true road-going race car, capable of reaching 60 mph in around 5.5 seconds and running the quarter mile in the low 13s, figures that were staggering for 1969. But the real magic of the Daytona was on the track. When the car debuted, it was immediately clear that Dodge had built something special. The Daytona was virtually untouchable on super speedways, where its advanced aerodynamics allowed it to reach speeds that no other stock car could match. In March 1970, NASCAR driver Buddy Baker cemented the Daytona's place in history when he took a Hemi-powered example to Talladega Superspeedway and became the first driver to break 200 mph in a NASCAR-sanctioned test session. It was a moment that changed the sport forever, proving that aerodynamics mattered just as much as raw horsepower. Unfortunately for Dodge, the Daytona and its twin, the 1970 Plymouth Superbird, were almost too fast for their own good. The cars dominated so completely that NASCAR officials quickly stepped in and changed the rules, limiting the displacement of aero cars with the Hemi engine to just 305 cubic inches for the 1971 season. This effectively ended the Daytona's reign in NASCAR, as teams abandoned the now handicapped Winged Warriors in favor of more conventional designs. By 1972, the era of the aero cars was over, and the Charger Daytona was retired from competition. On the street, the Daytona was just as outrageous. Dodge had to build at least 500 road-going versions to meet NASCAR's homologation requirements. And while the Daytona was undeniably fast, it wasn't exactly practical. The massive nose cone made parking a nightmare, and the enormous wing, while effective, turned the car into an instant spectacle. Some dealers struggled to sell them, with stories of cars sitting on lots for months or even years before finally being sold at a discount. But those who bought them knew they were getting something special, one of the most extreme and historically significant muscle cars ever built. Today, the Charger Daytona is one of the most sought-after Mopars in existence, especially the Hemi-powered versions. With only 503 Daytonas built in total and just 70 fitted with the legendary 426 Hemi, these cars command astronomical prices at auction, often selling for well over $1 million. Their combination of rarity, performance, and sheer historical significance makes them one of the ultimate collector cars, a true piece of American muscle car history. The 1969 Dodge Charger Daytona Hemi was more than just a muscle car, it was a revolution. It proved that aerodynamics mattered in high-speed racing, set records that forced NASCAR to rewrite the rulebook, and became one of the most recognizable and legendary machines ever to hit the track. It may have been ridiculed when it first appeared, but once it broke 200 mph, there was nothing left to say. The Winged Warrior had cemented its place in automotive history, and its legend only continues to grow. The 1998 TVR Speed 12 is the very definition of an automotive legend, an untamed, unhinged, borderline mythological beast that was so powerful and so extreme that even its own creators feared it. In an era when McLaren had the F1, Ferrari was working on the Enzo, and Bugatti was preparing to unleash the Veyron, little TVR, a small British sports car manufacturer known for its lightweight, overpowered death traps, decided to build something that would put them all to shame. What they ended up creating was so violent, so unmanageable, and so absurdly powerful that TVR's own founder, Peter Wheeler, canceled the project after driving a prototype himself, declaring that no sane human should be allowed to own one. And that, in itself, tells you everything you need to know about the Speed 12. The story of the Speed 12 begins in the mid-1990s, when TVR set its sights on endurance racing. The goal was to build a machine that could dominate the GT1 class at Le Mans, taking on giants like Porsche, Mercedes, and McLaren. But TVR, being TVR, wasn't interested in doing things the conventional way. Instead of sourcing a proven engine or refining an existing design, they decided to take two of their own inline-six engines and bolt them together to create a monstrous 7.7-liter V12. This wasn't just any V12. TVR's philosophy was simple: No turbos, no electronic aids, no unnecessary weight. Just raw, unfiltered, mechanical violence. The estimated power output of the Speed 12 was over 1,000 horsepower, though the true number remains a mystery. TVR never officially published final dyno figures. And according to legend, the engine was so powerful that it broke TVR's own testing equipment. Some estimates even place it closer to 1,200 HP, making it far more powerful than anything else on the road at the time. The car itself was designed with full carbon fiber bodywork, a stripped-out race interior, and an extreme aerodynamic package that included a massive rear wing and aggressive front splitters. TVR wasn't playing around. They were building a machine that could go toe-to-toe with anything on the planet. However, before the Speed 12 could make its racing debut, the rules changed. The FIA altered the GT1 regulations, effectively killing off the class, and with it, TVR's hopes of running the Speed 12 at Le Mans. But TVR wasn't ready to give up just yet. Instead of scrapping the project entirely, they decided to turn the Speed 12 into the ultimate road car, a hypercar so extreme that it would make the McLaren F1 look tame in comparison. The plan was to produce a handful of road-going versions, offering insane levels of performance in a completely unfiltered, no-compromise package. That plan lasted right up until Peter Wheeler himself took one for a test drive. Wheeler, a man who had no problem building and selling famously brutal cars like the TVR Cerbera and Tuscan, quickly realized that the Speed 12 was something else entirely. Even as a seasoned driver, he found the car to be completely unmanageable. It wasn't just fast, it was borderline undrivable on public roads. The combination of extreme power, ultra-low weight, and a complete lack of electronic safety features meant that the Speed 12 was less of a and more of a barely contained explosion on wheels. After experiencing its sheer insanity firsthand, Wheeler made a shocking decision. He canceled the project entirely, stating that no private owner should ever be allowed to drive such a machine. TVR had already begun taking deposits for the Speed 12, but all orders were refunded and the car was never officially sold. The remaining prototypes were dismantled, and for years it seemed like the Speed 12 was destined to be nothing more than a wild footnote in TVR's already insane history. But in 2003, one final chapter was written. TVR built a single road-legal Speed 12 using leftover parts and sold it to a private collector. This one-off car, the only street-legal Speed 12 in existence, remains one of the most terrifying and mysterious machines ever created. Even today, its true performance potential remains a matter of speculation. Could it have actually hit 240 miles per hour, and could it have been the fastest car of its era? Nobody knows for sure because nobody has ever dared to push it to its absolute limits. The TVR Speed 12 stands as a cautionary tale of what happens when a company with no fear builds a car with no limits. It was the ultimate expression of TVR's philosophy: lightweight, brutally powerful, and completely insane. It was a car that defied reason, ignored safety, and was too extreme even for the people who built it. And that is why it remains one of the most legendary and feared machines ever created. The 1994 Isdera Commendatore 112i is one of those rare automotive gems that seem to have been plucked straight from the realm of dreams. An exotic one-off that blends futuristic design with old-world craftsmanship and extreme performance. Built in small numbers by Isdera, a low-volume German manufacturer, the Commendatore 112i was a supercar ahead of its time. Stunningly beautiful, blisteringly fast, and engineered with the same obsessive attention to detail that defined the best European marques. Yet, despite its immense capabilities and striking looks, it largely flew under the radar, an unknown treasure hidden in the shadows of automotive history. At first glance, the Commendatore 112i's design is pure science fiction. The car's sleek, flowing lines and sharp angles evoke a sense of motion even when it's standing still. With its low-slung body, wide rear haunches, and aggressive front, it looks like something you might see on the cover of a 1980s-era concept car magazine. The car's body was crafted from lightweight materials, including carbon fiber, to ensure that the 112i remained agile and responsive at high speeds. The curvaceous bodywork, designed with aerodynamics in mind, was meticulously sculpted, to reduce drag and optimize stability at extreme velocities. But it wasn't just the design that made the Commendatore 112i special. Underneath that futuristic exterior was a 6.0-liter Mercedes-Benz V12 engine, a masterpiece of engineering in its own right. This V12 engine, derived from Mercedes' M120 power plant, produced around 408 horsepower and 420 left of torque, propelling the Commendatore 112i to a top speed of 213 mph. To put that into perspective, in '94, that was an exceptional feat. The V12 was paired with a 5-speed manual transmission, further enhancing the car's connection to the road and making it a true driver's machine. The Commendatore 112i's performance was on par with some of the most iconic supercars of its era, including the McLaren F1 and Ferrari F40, both of which were significantly more well-known and widely celebrated. The performance of the Commendatore 112i was only enhanced by its aerodynamic package. The car featured retractable headlights, which not only gave it a clean, futuristic look but also contributed to its low drag coefficient. The rear spoiler was adjustable, allowing the driver to fine-tune the car's downforce at high speeds, ensuring optimal handling and stability. With its mix of power, aerodynamics, and precision engineering, the Commendatore 112i was able to easily hit speeds that were previously the realm of only the very best supercars. Yet, despite its remarkable performance and striking beauty, the Isdera Commendatore 112i was never widely recognized in the supercar world. Part of the reason for this is its incredibly limited production. Just a single prototype was ever built. Isdera wasn't a large manufacturer, and the company was known for producing low-volume, bespoke machines. The Commendatore 112i's rarity, combined with its relatively low production numbers, meant that it was never able to achieve the same widespread fame as cars like the Ferrari F40 or Porsche 959. What's more, Isdera was a niche brand, and even its name, once known for the Isdera Imperador, a supercar that used Mercedes components, didn't carry the same recognition or cachet as the established giants of the supercar world. The Commendatore 112i's story is one of what could have been a high-performance, German-engineered supercar that captured the essence of automotive innovation and beauty, but remained on the fringes of automotive culture. It wasn't just a car, it was a statement, a glimpse into a world of extreme performance that existed just beyond the reach of the mainstream. Isdera, known for its dedication to engineering excellence and its willingness to push the envelope, created something truly exceptional with the 112i, but without the marketing muscle and brand recognition of larger manufacturers, it never received the accolades it deserved. As the years have passed, the Commendatore 112i has become a cult classic among enthusiasts. Its one-off nature, its Mercedes-derived powertrain, and its stunning design make it a prized possession for those lucky enough to experience it. It remains a perfect example of the kind of automotive masterpiece that, despite its brilliance, flies under the radar of most. In a world where cars are often valued based on their fame and mass appeal, the Isdera Commendatore 112i is a reminder that sometimes the most extraordinary machines are the ones that don't seek the spotlight. The 1985 Porsche 959 prototype is one of the most significant yet underappreciated cars in the history of supercars. While the production version of the Porsche 959 is widely celebrated as one of the first true hypercars, blending advanced technology, speed, and precision engineering in a way that had never been seen before, few remember that the prototype version built years earlier was even more extreme. Capable of reaching an astonishing 211 mph, the 959 prototype was faster than the Ferrari F40, and it came decades before terms like hypercar were even part of the automotive lexicon. The Porsche 959's story begins in the early 1980s, when Porsche was exploring the possibilities of combining the performance of a race car with the usability and luxury of a road-going machine. The goal was simple: to build the ultimate all-around car that could dominate on the racetrack and still be practical enough for everyday driving. What Porsche came up with was something completely revolutionary, a car that would incorporate technology so advanced that it would make everything that came before it look outdated. The prototype of the 959, unveiled in 1985, was an engineering marvel. It was powered by a 2.8-liter twin-turbocharged flat-six engine producing 450 horsepower, a staggering amount for a car of its size and era. This engine allowed the prototype to reach 211 mph, outpacing even Ferrari's own F40, which had become the benchmark for performance at the time. The production 959, which would eventually be unveiled in 1986, was a little less potent, with around 400 horsepower, but it still remained one of the fastest production cars in the world, capable of achieving speeds over 190 mph. What set the 959 prototype apart, however, was its combination of mind-boggling speed and groundbreaking technology. Porsche engineers were obsessed with performance and handling, so they incorporated some of the most advanced systems ever seen in a road car. The 959 prototype featured an all-wheel drive system, an advanced version of Porsche's legendary 4-valve ED setup that allowed the car to handle like a race car, even on challenging road surfaces. The car also boasted an adjustable suspension system, a first for a production vehicle, allowing the driver to change the car's ride height to better suit road conditions. Inside, the 959 prototype was just as futuristic. While the car's exterior was an evolution of the Porsche 911, its interior was filled with cutting-edge technology. The cabin featured a digital dashboard, which was a rarity at the time, and other innovations like a fully automatic transmission, another technological first for Porsche. The 959 prototype was as much a showcase of what was possible with automotive technology as it was a proof of Porsche's ability to push the boundaries of performance. Despite its incredible performance and technological innovations, the 959 prototype was never intended to be mass-produced. Porsche had grand plans for the car, but it was ultimately too advanced for its time. The prototype proved to be a glimpse into the future, but it was also a product of its era. Porsche had no intentions of bringing a car with such high technological demands to the mass market. This level of sophistication was costly, and only a limited number of production models were ever made. The 959 was sold to only a select few customers, with most of the cars going to well-heeled Porsche enthusiasts and collectors who could appreciate the true rarity and significance of the car. By the time the production 959 was officially launched, the supercar world had already shifted. Ferrari's F40, with its raw, visceral performance, and the upcoming McLaren F1 were capturing the spotlight, leaving the 959 to be somewhat overshadowed. While the 959 was a technical marvel, its sophisticated, high-tech systems were overshadowed by the more purist, mechanical appeal of cars like the F40, which focused on performance over luxury. And yet, the Porsche 959 is widely considered to be the first true hypercar, a car that pushed the boundaries of technology and performance to a point that few manufacturers could even imagine at the time. The 959 prototype may have been forgotten by many, but it was the precursor to the era of hypercars. In an era where technology, speed, and design are taken to unprecedented extremes, the 959 prototype paved the way for the next generation of hypercars. It was a car built with the future in mind, a machine that was light years ahead of its time and demonstrated Porsche's relentless pursuit of performance and innovation. Though overshadowed by the F40 and the hypercars that followed, the 959 prototype remains one of the most important and iconic vehicles in automotive history. The 2012 Hennessey Venom GT is one of those vehicles that represents a perfect storm of engineering, audacity, and raw performance. With its twin-turbocharged 7.0-liter V8 engine producing an astonishing 12,200 horsepower, it is a car built to obliterate speed records. Yet its place in automotive history is a bit muddied by technicalities and missed opportunities. Despite being faster than the legendary Bugatti Veyron, the Venom GT's top speed run was never officially verified in both directions, preventing it from being recognized as the world's fastest car, something it arguably deserved. At its core, the Venom GT was a product of Hennessey Performance Engineering, an American tuning company that has made a name for itself by taking already impressive vehicles and transforming them into absolute monsters. The Venom GT itself was essentially a stretched Lotus Elise, but saying it was just that would be like calling a fighter jet just a plane. The Lotus Elise's lightweight, agile chassis was the perfect foundation for a car that would be anything but ordinary. With its mid-engine layout and compact body, The Venom GT had the sort of agility and responsiveness that you wouldn't expect from a car with over 1,200 horsepower. The heart of the Venom GT was its engine. The 7.0-liter V8, developed by Hennessey and bolted to the rear axle, generated a mind-bending 1,200 horsepower and 1,150 pound-feet of torque. This immense power was sent to the rear wheels via a 6-speed manual transmission, making the Venom GT not only blisteringly fast, but also an exhilarating machine to drive. With such a massive power output, the car could reach 60 km/h from a standstill in just 2.7 seconds, putting it in the same league as the most capable hypercars of the era. Where the Venom GT truly set itself apart, however, was in its top speed. In 2014, the car was clocked at 270 mph during a test run, making it faster than the Bugatti Veyron Supersport, which had held the title of the world's fastest car for years. However, because the run wasn't completed in both directions, a requirement for an official world speed record, the Venom GT didn't officially claim the title. This technicality was a bitter pill for Hennessey, especially given that the car had proven it could surpass the Veyron's top speed. Nonetheless, the 270 mph run remains one of the most impressive feats of automotive performance in history. What made the Venom GT so impressive was not just its raw speed, but the fact that it was an incredibly well-balanced machine. Despite its astonishing power, the car handled with precision thanks to its lightweight chassis, responsive steering, and the advanced suspension system. The Venom GT was designed not just for straight-line speed, but for an overall driving experience that balanced power with control. This made it as much of a track day weapon as it was a record-breaking speedster. The car's low-slung, aggressive stance, coupled with its striking carbon fiber body, made it an eye-catching masterpiece. It looked every bit as fast as it was, with sharp, clean lines that exuded an aura of speed even when the car was standing still. Despite its blistering performance and unmatched top speed, the Venom GT never achieved the same level of recognition as its European counterparts, like the Veyron or the McLaren P1. Part of the reason for this was the car's limited production run. With only 13 units ever built, the Venom GT was a rare beast, too rare to make a lasting impact in the mainstream supercar world. Additionally, because Hennessey is a tuning company and not a traditional automaker, the Venom GT lacked the widespread brand recognition that companies like Bugatti, Ferrari, or Lamborghini commanded. The Venom GT was also a somewhat divisive car. While it was revered for its speed and raw power, some critics felt that its somewhat Spartan interior and rough-edged design didn't match the luxury and refinement offered by other hypercars of the time. In the end, the 2012 Hennessey Venom GT remains one of the most underappreciated supercars of the modern era. It briefly held the title of the world's fastest car, only to be overshadowed by bureaucratic rules and overshadowed by other high-performance vehicles that came afterward. Its performance was unmatched, its design was stunning, and its engine was pure magic. Though it may not have earned the recognition it deserved, the Venom GT's legacy is still one of blistering speed and unrelenting performance. An American supercar that was capable of competing with the best the world had to offer, but never quite received the fame it should have. The 1978 Chevrolet Corvette C3 Aerovette is one of those almost but never was cars that represents what could have been a revolutionary leap in automotive design and performance for America. Long before the mid-engine Corvette finally became a reality with the C8, the Aerovette, a concept car, was playing with the same idea, placing the engine behind the driver for improved handling, balance, and speed. But instead of the 6.2-liter V8 that powers the modern C8, the 1978 Aerovette started its journey with a Wankel rotary engine, a choice that further set it apart as an experimental marvel. Though it never made it to production, its potential was staggering, and had it been given the green light, it could have made the Corvette America's first true hypercar. The story of the Aerovette starts with General Motors' desire to push the Corvette into new, experimental territory. By the late 70s, GM had already seen great success with the Corvette C3, but it also understood that to stay competitive and relevant, it needed to evolve. This was the era when automotive engineers were testing the limits of aerodynamics, performance, in engineering, and the mid-engine layout was beginning to gain serious traction as the future of sports car design. GM, never one to shy away from ambitious projects, began working on a concept to combine the Corvette's iconic styling with cutting-edge engineering. The result was the 1978 Aerovette, a radical redesign that featured a sleek, aerodynamic body and a mid-mounted engine. The car's design was futuristic for its time, with sharp lines, a low-slung profile, and a distinctly modern look that would have made it right at home on today's streets. Its wedge-shaped front end and smooth, flowing rear spoke to an era of bold experimentation and forward-thinking design. The body was constructed using lightweight materials like fiberglass and plastic, which were crucial to improving performance, reducing weight, and increasing fuel efficiency. Under the hood, or rather in the middle of the car, the Aerovette began with an ambitious Wankel rotary engine. The Wankel engine, known for its smoothness and high revving nature, was a choice that set the Corvette apart from anything else on the road. It was compact, efficient, and in theory would provide the Aerovette with excellent power-to-weight ratio and the kind of high-revving excitement that would appeal to driving enthusiasts. The Wankel engine was originally intended to power the car with around 200 horsepower, a respectable amount for its size, but it was quickly replaced with a more conventional 400 cubic inch V8 engine due to the Wankel's lack of long-term reliability and refinement in consumer vehicles. This shift gave the car a much more potent powertrain with an output closer to 230 horsepower, which still made it a formidable performer. The true magic of the Aerovette, however, was its performance potential. When properly dialed in, the car had the ability to theoretically reach speeds of 230 mph. At the time, that would have made it one of the fastest cars on the planet, far outstripping anything that America's sports car icon had ever achieved. While the car's top speed remained theoretical, the engineering behind it was clearly capable of extraordinary performance. With its mid-engine layout, lightweight construction, and sleek aerodynamic design, the Aerovette was set to redefine what a Corvette could be. It had the kind of balance and handling that would have been unmatched by its rear-engine predecessors, and its speed would have made it a legitimate competitor to Europe's finest supercars. But despite its promising start and incredible potential, the Aerovette never made it past the prototype stage. GM, faced with internal priorities, budget constraints, and concerns over the practicality of the car's production, decided to scrap the project. The decision was influenced by a mix of factors: concerns over the cost of manufacturing such an advanced vehicle, the potential reliability issues with the Wankel engine, and GM's focus on other projects. It was a difficult decision that ultimately kept the Aerovette from becoming a reality, and it left behind an unresolved legacy of what could have been. Had the Aerovette been produced, it would have been America's first true hypercar, a car that combined cutting-edge technology, high performance, and a distinctively American flair. It would have been a mid-engine Corvette nearly a decade before the C8, and with its 230 mph theoretical top speed, it would have made Corvette not just a sports car, but a competitor on the world stage of supercars. Instead, the car remained a footnote in automotive history, an unfulfilled promise that left enthusiasts dreaming of what might have been. In hindsight, the Aerovette represents a pivotal moment in the Corvette's history, a moment when the car could have evolved into something far more radical and globally competitive.